Has Donald Trump bitten off more than he can chew by attacking Iran? In the opening days of the war, we saw typical American military might on full display. Shock and awe, just blow everything up. Iran's Navy and Air Force have been significantly reduced in their capability by both the US and Israeli airstrikes. Donald Trump has also since come out and declared that the war is almost won. But in order to judge if there's success or what success looks like, we need to look at what the objectives were. In the lead up to this, the US mentioned several times that Iran was on the verge of building a nuclear weapon. But when you look at the US's own intelligence assessments going back months or maybe even the last year or two leading up to the war, they all explicitly state that Iran had no intention of restarting its nuclear weapons program, that it had paused all the way back in 2003. Add to that last year we saw the US and Israel hitting Iranian nuclear research facilities, and they stated after that Trump stated after that those sites had been obliterated, Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated. Then if we look at the negotiations that were held in Oman, that were up in motion right up until when the strikes started now in March, there were significant concessions made by Iran in those negotiations. So they agreed to pause enrichment, they agreed to reduce stockpiles, and to allow increased inspections to monitor compliance. Then Trump came out and made the claim that there was a threat of imminent attack by Iran against the US, but there's been no evidence presented of this. And if this really were the case, why would Iran risk antagonizing the US in the midst of these negotiations? They would know that the US had built up a significant military presence in the months leading up to these negotiations in the region. So to attack the US would mean risking a massive and swift response from the US. It just doesn't make any sense as to why they would do that. And in any case, they would lose any potential good footing that they had in the negotiations if they had to attack the US. Iran, or Persia as it used to be known, has been around for a very, very long time. It's one of the largest, if not the largest empire in the region. It's not going anywhere anytime soon as a nation state. So against all of this, what exactly were the reasons for the strikes? Oh yes, the Iranian government and the RGC are authoritarian, oppressive, responsible for a lot of bloodshed and death in the Middle East. They fund a lot of militias that are anti-Western interests, anti-Israeli. So if regime change was the goal, why make this attack or this war all around a non-existent nuclear program or the threat of a non-existent attack? And by keeping up the attacks on Iranian infrastructure with the express aim of destroying something which wasn't really an issue to begin with, the only result inside Iran is that it's going to turn more and more Iranians against the US, which means that any regime change effect will be harder to put into place. It also means that in the longer term, Iran will just become a more hostile state in the region and more anti-American in their sentiment. And then we get to the real longer term problem, is that yes, Iran's conventional military capability has been degraded significantly with these attacks by the US and Israel, and will likely take a long time to recover. But Iran has massive stockpiles of cheap Shahed drones, which can be launched from the back of a truck pretty much anywhere in the country. They don't need sophisticated launch infrastructure. They don't need radar guidance, things like that. They are fairly dumb weapons. They've got a basic guidance system, small payload in them. But the estimates are that they had around 80,000 of these before the war started, with the ability to build around 10,000 a month. And Iran's likely only used 10 or 15,000 of them. So they have significant amount of these in reserve. They likely won't be used against military infrastructure because of their limited offensive capability, but rather against civilian infrastructure like oil fields, airports, commercial shipping. And the aim here is obvious, is to put selective economic pressure on the neighboring countries. And these countries in turn will then put the pressure on the US. Iran has already stated its intention to be selective about what vessels or what countries' vessels it allows to transit the Strait of Hormuz. And it's already started charging shipping companies to allow their vessels to transit through the strait without fear of being attacked. The most recent was where a ship owner paid $2 million just to get their vessels to be able to transit Hormuz. It also means that Iran can keep supplies of oil flowing to China or to any other nations that support it. And now we're getting to the bigger problem, is that what happens when China and Russia start more actively supporting Iran in its defense or against its offensive endeavors in the region. Are we going to see this war become a lot more protracted than perhaps Donald Trump had predicted? The decapitation strike that maybe he hoped would happen hasn't happened. The Iranian regime, it's significantly degraded, but it's still very much in control of the country. And unless the US finds an off-ramp quickly, I see this dragging out into a very, very long and protracted war that probably has a lot of similarities with Ukraine, where Russia thought that they could move in quickly, cut the head off the snake, so to speak, move in, take over the country. That didn't happen, and 4 years later, we're sitting in this very bloody war in Ukraine. Now, does Iran have the potential to become another Ukraine, with the US being the aggressor in this case? I hope that cooler heads prevail, and I hope the US finds an off-ramp quickly that everybody can live with, and that peace returns to the region.